Good morning. A few days ago, we began the new lunar month, which goes from, I believe, June 25th through July 24th. And so today I want to talk a little bit about this lunar month and what it means for the world, America, and Trump. So let's see if I can share my screen and we can get started. Okay, this will take just a few minutes to get everything set up. I've got to get rid of some panels so that I can see what I'm doing. And hold on a second, I'm almost there. Okay, and we're finally ready to go. The lunar month for the world, America, and Trump. June 25th through July 24th. Okay, these are some of the main transits for the month. And there are actually three very momentous things going on. First, all month long, the lunar month, by the way, just goes from latter part of June through most of July. But here it's showing a full 2 months. For all summer long, though, June, July, and August, we have Saturn within 1 degree of an exact conjunction with Neptune. It won't be exact until next year, but we're getting a big preview this year of things to come. And whenever Saturn and Neptune come into conjunction, old structures tend to dissolve and new structures take their place. We often see big changes in ideology. This conjunction typically impacts Russia quite a bit. Unfortunately, Russia is a closed society. We don't get a lot of accurate news regarding how people on the street feel about things. So it's hard to know exactly what the sentiment is in Russia right now. But this year, next year, or the next few years, we might see some big changes occur. And for a variety of reasons, this conjunction will affect America too quite a bit. And all year long, we have been seeing dissolving of structures, traditional trade practices, government agencies, all across the board in America. Things have been dissolving. Now, when Neptune gets the upper hand in this conjunction, we just see dissolving, the dissolution of things. But sometimes Saturn gets the upper hand, and that's where we see people acting in a very authoritarian way, trying to control others or situations to keep them from dissolving. So we have been seeing both of those things happening in America this year, dissolution of the structures and very authoritarian measures taken as the government has ignored things like due process in legal matters. So that Saturn-Neptune conjunction is one of the big things going on this summer. Also, we have a mini grand trine beginning to form between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, with Saturn joining in at this point. Throughout most of July, Saturn and Neptune will get within 1 degree of an exact sextile to Pluto. And at the start of the next lunar month, Saturn will get within 1 degree of a sextile to Uranus. But this Uranus, Neptune, Pluto mini grand trine that will be in effect off and on for the next 4 years, it produces great coordination between these outer planets, which are all involved with change. Uranus breaks up the pattern, Neptune dissolves the boundaries, Pluto causes something new to rise from the ashes. So a lot of important things are beginning now. Uh, some people are going to become much more enlightened spiritually. Everyone is going to be opening up more to newer and higher perspectives and a more cosmic point of view regarding things. With Pluto in Aquarius, Uranus soon to be in Gemini, and Neptune in Aries, there's going to be a tremendous amount of inventiveness going on and rapid development of new technologies. And Neptune in Aries is going to turn those dreams into reality. A third thing going on, which is not shown on this slide, is that on July 7th, Uranus moves into Gemini. And that is where the curiosity, the inventiveness, the thinking process of Gemini, it moves into this very hyper mode. And that's why I say we will see a lot of new inventions and probably revolutions in the field of communication. Okay. Now, also, we have toward the end of the lunar month that Mars is going to be opposite the North Node, which means it's going to be conjunct the South Node. The Lunar Nodal Axis always intensifies things, and Mars is about action, assertiveness, but also war and aggression. So, with the aggressive tendencies of Mars being intensified, this can be a dangerous time for the world. There will be an increased risk of war or aggression toward the end of this lunar month. Possibly it all expresses itself in terms of positive action and assertion, but given past history, we expect to see some sort of aggressive moves or warlike moves taking place. Now, as we'll see as we go through this slideshow, there are going to be contacts between Mars and the nodal axis taking place around this time when we look at America's chart and also when we look at Trump's chart. So it looks like whatever happens, America will be very much involved with it. And this could be aggression or assertiveness between America and another country, or it could be aggressiveness or upon America's own public. And we're seeing a lot of that now with the way that people are being snatched off the streets by alleged officers who are dressed in blue jeans and t-shirts and sometimes tactical gear and wear masks over their faces. So we don't know who they are. And this is happening from ICE and other government agencies. So we may see more of that happening, or even worse things happening in America in late July. Also, while I'm thinking of it, let me point out that when Uranus goes into Gemini, America has a tendency to get involved in conflicts either at home or abroad. And that becomes more likely as Uranus gets closer to 8 degrees Gemini, where it was at the start of the American Revolution, or at least when the Declaration of Independence was created. Some will say the revolution had already begun. Then again, during the Civil War, Uranus was in Gemini, and just a few months before America joined World War II, Uranus entered into Gemini, and During the period of the Uranus return, when Uranus returned to 8 degrees Gemini, America was deeply involved in the Manhattan Project, using enriched uranium to create an atomic bomb, the first atomic bomb. Uranus, uranium, seems to be a connection there. Okay, so there will be interesting things going on this lunar month. Now, here's the new moon on June 25th. We have Sun conjunct the moon and also conjunct Jupiter. And this is in Gemini. This is showing us what people really want. We want freedom. We want growth. We want a sense of security. We want to feel secure in our homes. We want some growth and prosperity and freedom to do the things we want. But there are some things conflicting with this. We're getting a strong square from Saturn, Neptune, and Aries. And some of the actions that the governments around the world are taking are not sitting well with the people, particularly in America. There is this very visible restructuring going on. Old structures being dissolved, new structures replacing them, new ideologies coming into being. Diversity is now a forbidden word in the American government. And the government is trying to control the people quite a bit. That is the sort of thing happening in America, and it may be happening in other countries too around the world, since this new moon applies to everyone. At the same time, we have Pluto making a quincunx to this conjunction of planets and Cancer, and it's all pretty strong. The quincunx indicates adjustments. Pluto in Aquarius, this will be the powers that be. So there are changes in structure that are affecting the welfare of people around the world. This could also have to do with Trump's tariffs and the havoc they are wreaking upon supply chains and trade globally. That disruption in supply chains, those disruptions caused by tariffs, are affecting everyone around the world. And the people are going to have to make adjustments to whatever the powers that be are doing. Now, Venus is in Taurus. It's making a strong sesquiquadrant to the moon and the sun and Jupiter over here. With Venus in Taurus, there's an emphasis on pleasure, on things people enjoy, and also on financial matters, the resources you need to get the things you like. There's a little bit of tension here between the people, so people may be starting to feel a financial pinch from Trump's trade practices and tariffs and other things going on in the world. So again, people just want freedom to be themselves, to feel secure in their own homes and with their own families. But there are some outer tensions here, which are causing some problems and some things that people are going to have to adjust to this month. This is going to be the tone for the lunar month. Now, when we get to the first quarter moon, we have a waxing square between the sun and the moon. That pretty much defines what a first quarter moon is. But we're also beginning to see the formation of this mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and Saturn and Venus are part of it on this day. So something is beginning to change, and it can be changed for the better. As we get into this grand trine between Uranus and Pluto. It won't be exact this summer. It'll get very close at times, but it won't be exact this summer. But over the next few years, we're going to see 5 exact trines between Uranus and Pluto. And this is the first waxing trine since the Uranus-Pluto conjunction, those conjunctions that occurred in 1965, 66, and which brought about all that tremendous social revolution of the 60s. So things that are going on now, it really goes back to the 1960s. These things had their origins in the 1960s, and we saw a lot of protests in America and around the world in the latter half of the 60s. And so I thought as this mini grand trine begins to develop, we might see the return to a lot of 1960s style protests. And we have already seen that in America with the No Kings protests that millions of Americans participated in. But as I said earlier, this mini grand trine between Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, it's really going to open up people to higher perspectives, more progressive perspectives. And very soon Uranus will go into Gemini, and that's when all this technology and invention will be on steroids. Changes will take place at a very rapid pace. And there's going to be a lot of restructuring of things in the world for good or bad. Change will occur, but it remains to be seen whether it's good change or bad change. There could be changes in financial structures because of this conjunction of Venus with Uranus at this point. Though Venus will move on within a few days. Saturn, Neptune, that's going to be with us all summer, as will this mini grand trine. So this is really a summer where we see the beginning of a lot of new global changes in the world. And on July 7th, that is when Uranus will enter Gemini, and Venus is still part of this mini grand trine. We get a second mini grand trine being formed by the Moon, Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto. So this is going to help relieve a lot of tension on this day, which is good because Moon will be in opposition to Uranus, Neptune. That is really going to highlight this shift that occurs when Uranus moves from Taurus into Gemini. With Uranus and Taurus, there was more of a focus on innovation of financial matters and changes in our access to the things that we need to survive. With Uranus and Gemini, it's more about inventiveness, thinking, communication. There can be a revolution, a technical revolution in communication devices. And with Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto all working together harmoniously, we're going to see rapid changes in inventions and technology and progressive thought around the world. But on this particular day, we also have Mars making a sesquiquadrate to Chiron. That can create some aggression and some wounding. And we have Sun making a pretty strong semi-square to Uranus. So there can be some sort of disruption to existing patterns. At this moment in time, the more positive thing would be additional creativeness. This could be the tension that spurs creativity in a lot of people, particularly with the moon also in opposition to Uranus. So July 7th, there's important change here. And if if it were not for this mini grand trine in the conjunction of Saturn and Neptune, this would be considered probably the biggest change to be occurring this summer. That in itself is a very big change. By the time we get to July 7th, there's a little bit more harmony. Our Uranus, Neptune, Pluto mini grand trine is getting stronger, but we also have this mystic rectangle being created by the sun, the moon, and the lunar nodes. So this will be a pretty harmonious day, as will July 11th, where the sun moves into a trine sextile relationship with the lunar nodes. And we still have this strong mini grand trine. And this is also the day that the new Superman movie is going to be released. And in the configuration of this mini grand trine, it represents these higher, loftier ideals of truth, justice, and a cosmic connection that the Superman mythology has always represented. Those higher ideals that Superman represents, that is all, those ideals are also inherent in this mini grand trine. These higher perspectives that are coming into place, and Saturn hopefully bringing justice instead of repression. Okay, now we get to the third quarter moon. Still got the sun or the Saturn-Neptune conjunction going strong, and the Uranus-Neptune-Pluto mini grand trine is getting stronger. On this day, though, Mars is moving into conjunction with the Lunar Nodal Axis. That is intensifying the aggressiveness of Mars, making conflict and war more likely. And we have, of course, the sun makes a waning square with the moon. That's what a third quarter moon is. But Chiron is involved with this now. The moon is conjunct Chiron, and the sun is square Chiron. So that can bring about more wounding. So as we move into the latter part of this lunar month, we see signs of more aggression being intensified and wounding occurring. And let's see. Then we get to July 20th. And on this day, Mars is going to be exactly conjunct the lunar nodal axis, and Venus is going to complete a T-square. So there's going to be a lot of additional tension at this point, and the Sun is going to be making a strong square to Chiron as well. So again, intensified aggression and wounding taking place. And with Venus and Gemini, Venus, it's our drive to reduce tension, our seeking of pleasure, but also represents our right brain, our non-verbal brain. We're based upon what makes us feel good and what doesn't make us feel good. We develop our sense of values. And with Venus and Gemini involved in these tensions, people's sense of value, that is going to be at odds with things. People are going to be engaging. They will have certain ideas of what's good, what isn't, and they will be very vocal about it with Venus and Gemini. More rhetoric, more vocalization. But with the squares from Mars and the lunar nodes, anger, aggression, assertiveness, all of that will be intensified. However, at the same time, we still have Saturn conjunct Neptune going on in the Uranus-Neptune-Pluto grand trine. getting ever stronger, and the Sun will also be helping to complete another mini grand trine with Sun sextile Uranus, sextile Saturn Neptune, trine the Sun. So we still have some of these tremendous changes going on. And by the way, on February 20th of 2026, that is when we get the exact Saturn-Neptune conjunction in the first degree of Aries. And the last time there was an exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in the first degree of Aries was in the year 4361 BCE, before the Common Era. And that was around a time that historians peg as the dawn of civilization. So we're actually finishing up a 6,000-year cycle here. This is not just another Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's coming about. This is something very momentous that will change mankind one way or another, for good or for bad. So we're at the start of some new tremendous cycle. Okay. And so all of that is going on, Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, throughout the summer. But at this moment in time, as we get toward the end of the lunar month, things will getting more tense, more a heightened probability of wounding, a heightened probability of conflict and aggression. And then we get the next new moon on July 24th. And we still have some mini grand trines that are very strong. Saturn-Neptune conjunction, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. But now a Sun-Moon, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune mini grand trine also occurring. This will create some positive energies for the next lunar month, though with Saturn, Neptune in very strong opposition to Pluto, there may be some rising up against the powers that be. The people will be saying one thing, the powers that be something else. And we still have this T-square between Mars, the lunar nodes, and Venus. It's still hanging on. It will still be in effect, though it's somewhat waning. So that gives you a good overview of the lunar month for the world. Big changes going on all month, but toward the end of the month, there can be a heightened risk for conflict, wounding, and aggression. Okay. Now, if we look at America, I tend to use the July 2nd, 1776 chart for America, because that is when the Declaration of Independence was passed by the Continental Congress. July 4th is when it went public. They printed it up and distributed it. Both charts work. Both charts are relevant. They were both important moments in the development of America, and there are other important moments in the development of the America as we know it today. And when I talk about with regard to the July 2nd chart, it's going to tend to apply to the July 4th chart too. So no big difference in this particular case. Now, I've put some rectangles around some aspects that are particularly important. Some of these rectangles, you can see a D in there. I don't know why that appeared. It looks like just a bug in the graphics portion of the program I was using, so you can ignore the D. But here's what's going on. At the start, we're going to have Neptune in opposition, or let's say the North Node in opposition to Neptune in the USA chart, which means the South Node is conjunct Neptune. So the lunar nodal axis, that transing lunar nodal axis is conjunct Neptune as we start the lunar month, which is going to be about this time right here. Okay. This intensifies misinformation, delusion, and fanaticism in America at this point. For some, it may intensify positive visions, but for the masses, we're more likely to get some of the more average or more negative outcomes. Also, in the USA chart, both July 6th, July 4th, Neptune is square Mars. So whenever one of these planets gets stimulated, the other is stimulated also. So when Neptune is intensified, we're also likely to see more aggression, assertion, anger, or conflict within the country. Now, one of the things which is going to be very important for America this lunar month is for the entire lunar month, we have the square between Chiron and Pluto, which is increasing in strength. And this can cause wounding to either the overall power of America or to the power of its leader or the leader, him or herself. Pluto can represent the President of the United States. It can also just represent any person in the country that has a lot of power. But one way or another, there's probably going to be some wounding to power this month. It could possibly come through economic turmoil created by Trump, both through tariffs and through these mass deportations. There are some good things going on this month. Transing Jupiter will be conjunct Jupiter for a little over a week, about a week and a half. And this can help bring about prosperity, a sense of growth for the country. This could be good for the stock market, for example. And recently, the stock market has been going up, and it's been good to me. As we say, the stock market giveth, and the stock market taketh away. Earlier this year, it took away, but now it's giving back. So I'm back to where I started at the beginning of the year. No growth, but it's good to be back without any losses at this point. At the end of the month, Jupiter is going to be conjunct the Sun again. Jupiter's growth and expansion. The Sun can represent the country. It can represent the leader of the country, just Trump. So the country and or Trump could experience some positive things toward the end of this lunar month. Okay, but we also have the transiting lunar nodes will be squaring natal Mars throughout most of July. And toward the end of the lunar month, we get into transiting Mars, square natal Mars, and transiting Mars conjunct Neptune. Now, when we looked at the world in general, toward the end of the lunar month, we saw contacts between the lunar nodal axis and Mars, which could create more tension, more conflict, could even lead to war. We're seeing the same sort of thing in the chart for America happening toward the end of the lunar month. So, increased risk of conflict for America and wounding for America's power as we move into July and get toward closer to the end of this lunar month. And that could be conflict either at home or abroad. It could be war upon people within the country, which we're already seeing. with mass deportations, a lack of due process, attacks on academic institutions and law firms and other things, or it could be war or conflict of some sort abroad. So, some things to be very careful about this month for America and the world. Okay, now for this July 2nd, 1776 chart for America, the solar return occurs on July 2nd, 2025. And this can kind of set a tone of what the issues will be for the coming year, particularly for the next 6 months for America. Up here, you can see transiting sun exactly conjunct natal sun. You also see transiting Jupiter is very strongly conjunct natal Jupiter at this point. So that is a good sign for America. In spite of other tensions, there will likely be some growth and a sense of freedom and expansiveness in some sectors of the country. Okay. Now, while transiting Sun is conjunct natal Sun, it's also going to be square natal Moon. So this suggests that in this coming year, particularly for the next 6 months, that there may be some disconnect between the powers that be that run the country and the people. The sun represents, in this case, the country and the president of the country. The moon represents the people. And this square between sun and moon represents a disconnect or lack of coordination between the two. So the people will very likely not be completely happy with what the executive branch of government is doing. Also, and this is very ominous for solar return, Mars at 8 degrees Virgo, making a very strong square to Uranus, natal Uranus at 8 degrees Gemini. That also makes some sort of aggression or conflict more likely. It could result in a full-fledged war of some sort, or just some bombing here and there. But there is going to be a greater tendency for conflict or aggression, and that could take place either at home or abroad. And of course, we have transiting Chiron, square natal Pluto. This could wound or weaken America's power and its leader or leaders. So, one good thing in the solar return chart, some other things that can lead to aggression, wounding, and more concern over the next year, and particularly over the next 6 months. It doesn't have to manifest in a negative way, but the risks, the probabilities of certain things occurring are heightened at this moment for this year. So it's something to keep an eye on. Now let's see, when we get to July 12th, that is when the lunar nodal axis is going to be making an exact square to natal Mars. So that's really going to intensify this likelihood of conflict or aggression. Like I said, we could see conflict abroad, conflict at home. We could see a rise in people just going crazy, driving cars into crowds, shooting at people in schools, mass murders, things like that. We also have transiting Chiron very, very close to a square with natal Pluto. So again, increased chance of wounding to the power of America, to people who have power in America, to the President of America. Pluto, however, is in the fourth house, which is the home and the homeland. So this is also could be wounding to the homeland, the people who reside in America. More than one way in which something like this could manifest, but keep an eye out for some sort of wounding occurring in July. And with Chiron in America's seventh house, in this chart, this could be wounding from others or other countries. So lots of things to keep an eye on here. When we get to July 21st, this is when transiting Mars will be making an exact square between natal Mars, and we see the lunar nodal axis. It's still square natal Mars, and transiting Chiron is still making a strong square to natal Pluto. So this tendency for America to be involved in aggression and to be wounded, or it could also wound others. The wounding could go in either direction, but there is going to be a heightened risk of such outcomes in July for America, a heightened risk of aggression, conflict, and wounding of America's power, or the people in power, or American power, in turn, wounding others. Let's see, on July 25th, Mars will be making an exact conjunction with natal Neptune, but because of the square in both July 2nd, July 4th, 1776 charts between Neptune and Mars, when you stimulate one part of that square, you stimulate the other part. Mars conjunct Neptune, that can increase delusion, misinformation, disinformation, fanaticism in America, leading to violence. The lunar nodal axis will still be squaring natal Mars, and transiting Chiron is kind of covered up here, but it's still making a strong square to natal Pluto. So again, you can see a lot of these influences will be present throughout the entire lunar month for America. And now if we look at Donald Trump's chart this month, something I've pointed out elsewhere is Trump's chart. It's he has a series of conjunctions that are each 30 degrees apart from one another. And as a result, a consequence of this is whenever he has bad aspects to one part of his chart, he tends to have good aspects to another part. So something always throws him a lifeline. And he's going to have transiting Chiron, trine his natal Mars. His natal Mars is also conjunct his ascendant. That is going to go on throughout the entire month. So that is going to give him some healing from other tensions that are occurring. This is the lifeline that he's been thrown. Now, for the first few weeks of this lunar month, he has a lot of squares being activated. He has transiting Uranus square his ascendant. That's going to make him more hyper, more erratic, more unpredictable, and flip-flopping more. Tariffs on today, off tomorrow, on the next day, that sort of thing. He has the transiting Lunar Nodal Axis, square his moon, and square his natal nodal axis. So whatever he is feeling, it's going to be more intense. He's going to have Jupiter square Neptune for over a week. This will intensify his own delusions and his own fanaticism about things. And toward the end of this lunar month, Transing Mars will be square his 10th house Uranus, again making him more erratic, more aggressive, more warlike. And Transing Mars will also square his natal moon and his natal sun. So this is interesting because we had in the latter part of this lunar month, we had, for the world in general, there were contacts between Mars and the lunar nodal axis. For America in particular, there were contacts between Mars and the lunar nodal axis. And for Trump in particular, there will be contacts between Mars and the lunar nodal axis. Consequently, I'm concerned about aggression or conflict that could occur toward the end of this lunar month. It doesn't have to happen. This is just a weather report. And all we can say is that there is simply an increased or heightened risk of conflict occurring in the world in the latter part of this lunar month, around the last week of this lunar month. This can happen for the world, for America, and for Trump. And then a lot of Trump's feelings will be intensified in the first couple of weeks of this lunar month. And there can be a lot of flip-flopping on his part, a lot of erratic moves. But Chiron trine his natal Mars, which is conjunct to his ascendant, that throws him a lifeline, which will tend to get him out of trouble, most likely. That's what's happened in the past. Okay, so I have just a couple of dates here when things will be a little bit more intense. First, for all that stuff happening within the first couple of weeks of the lunar month, we'll look at July 6, 2025 for Trump. And let's see what's going on here. Well, we have the lunar nodes. They're squaring this Sun, North Node, Uranus, South Node, Moon opposition that he has in his birth chart. So things are going to be intensified quite a bit. He has transing Uranus square his ascendant pretty strongly. And that is going to make him more erratic, flip-flopping, changing on a lot of issues, a lot of things just coming out of the blue. He has transiting Jupiter square his natal Neptune. That's going to intensify his misinformation, disinformation, his fanaticism about things. But transiting Chiron trine natal Mars, that throws him a very important lifeline. And by the way, it looks like July 6th is when transing Uranus square his ascendant is going to be exact. And then if we move on to July 23rd, this is getting toward the end of the lunar month. He still has that lifeline transiting Chiron, making a nice strong trine to his natal Mars, moving into a trine to his ascendant. Uranus is still making a strong square to his ascendant. It will have moved into Gemini now, which always makes America more likely to get involved in wars and other conflicts. Trump himself will tend to be erratic, chaotic quite a bit. Uh, and the lunar nodal axis is still squaring Sun, Moon, and the natal lunar nodal axis, and Mars is becoming a part of that. So this is when Trump will be most aggressive. Will he be attacking people abroad or people within this country, or both? Good chance of both. And it's a very worrisome time. Things could get very bad. If we're lucky, we will, for instance, hopefully avoid war abroad and full-fledged civil war at home. But there could be some conflicts between us and other countries, or people abroad, and conflicts between American government and people in this country. Pluto is going to be making a very strong sesquiquadrant to his natal Uranus. Again, this could make him more erratic. We have Uranus breaking up the pattern combined with the transformative power of Pluto. At its worst, this could be death. Worst case scenario for Trump would be death. This could be some sort of transformation of his power, since Uranus is in 10th house of power and status. This could be revolts from labor, for instance, since Pluto will be going through the 6th house in America's chart. So there could be some sort of trouble for Trump, which could transform his power to some extent, or this could be an irritation which simply makes Trump more chaotic and more erratic in whatever he is doing. So it looks like that is going to be it for the lunar month. Okay, so I'm back, and it's quite an interesting time for the world and for America. The most important, long-lasting thing going on is this conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, which starts this summer and is perfected in February of 2026. And like I said, this is not just any old conjunction of, let's see, Saturn and Neptune. The last time there was a conjunction at the beginning of Aries in the first degree, as will occur on February 20th of 2026, that was back in the year 4361 BC. That was the dawn of civilization. So in the grander scheme of things, we're starting like another 6,000 year cycle. I need to double check this. I should have looked it up before I started this video, but I think maybe around 476 of the Common Era, there was a conjunction between Saturn and Neptune in Aries. Wasn't at the very start of Aries, but it was a strong one. And let's see. No, I'm sorry. I don't think I'm remembering it correctly. I think it was another Uranus, Neptune, Pluto mini grand trine that occurred at that point and lasted for a few years, like this one will last for a few years. Like I said, I haven't looked at this up for a while. It wasn't, pretty sure now it wasn't Saturn, Neptune, but Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. So I'm going to toss this out as something that's not necessarily accurate, but something for you to check on your own. I think around 476 CE, there was another Uranus, Neptune, Pluto mini grand trine that lasted for a few years. And it saw the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of medieval times. So that gives you a sense of perhaps the kind of shift to expect when you have a Uranus, Neptune, Pluto mini grand trine like we're having now. Again, double check this for me. I may not be remembering it correctly. I think I am, but double check it. And I'll try and put in my description of this video whether what I'm thinking was correct or not. So I'll try and clarify things there. But if so, then we have more than one indication that we're on the cusp of some very big and very long-term shifts and changes. This is the start of it all. And we may not live to see the end of it. These are long-term shifts that can take a few hundred years to really get into the swing of things. But now is where it all begins. And so if you're alive at this point, if you're listening to this video, I'm pretty sure you're alive at this point. And that means you are a part of one of the most momentous shifts and changes in history. But aside from that, as we get into this month, there is a greater chance of conflict or aggression occurring in the world and in America in particular. So keep an eye on things, keep looking up to the stars, and use this information to make your life better and to help you make better choices as we go forward. Use this to help produce the best possible outcomes rather than the worst possible outcomes. If you see war on the horizon, do what you can to avoid that war and that conflict. And with that, I'll just say so long and be well, and I hope you join me again in the future. So long.